why do we talk about empathy? Because empathy leads to trust, and trust leads to the ability to change behavior. If you don't trust me, there's nothing I can do or say.
Welcome to the Trauma Overhaul Podcast. I am Tiffany Singleton, your host.
And I'm Aliyah Simon, your co-host.
And we have back with us this evening, Mr. Terry Tucker.
Yes.
Right? You may have remembered him from a previous episode, and we said he would be returning, but he's back sooner. So we have him back tonight. Welcome back to the show, Terry.
Tiffany and Aliyah, I'm really looking forward to talking with you again.
All right. So we know that suicide, we're seeing it in the media now. It seems like it's spreading everywhere, where a lot of people are going through things and becoming so overwhelmed that they're resorting to taking their lives, realizing they feel like they can't go on. They don't know what's the next move. We don't know how to problem solve. And so let's talk about, what does that look like, and how can we identify possibly someone in our circle or within our network or in our families that might be possibly contemplating suicide? What does that generally look like?
I mean, both of you probably would be better at answering this, but I can give you some of the things that we would look for. It would be to, change your behavior, change in mood, change in appetite, giving things away, talking about death, talking about ending your life and things like that. All those kind of things are indicators. And one of the things that I did as a hostage negotiator was, if we thought someone was going to harm themselves, we would put it right in their face. We would say to them, "Hey, are you going to shoot yourself? Are you going to kill yourself? Are you whatever the we felt was the appropriate terminology?" And we used to get people who didn't understand what we do, and people who, like you, who don't work with people that are in crisis or have mental health issues, always kind of had this idea that, well, if I say that, that's putting the idea into their mind or into their head. And that's just not the case. If I would say that to somebody and they weren't thinking about hurting themselves or killing themselves, they would kind of fire back on me like, "No, you idiot. I'm not thinking about killing myself," or something like that. It's like, okay. So you're not going to get the person to do it by making the suggestion, but the inverse of that, by saying that to them, you may open the door to them to be like, "Oh my God, you see me, you see what's going on. Thank you." And all of a sudden they may just start, the verbal diarrhea. They just might start talking and talking and talking and talking, because they found somebody that sees what they're going through, and they just want to unload. They just want to get it off their chest. So and you don't have to do anything. Just listen. Just sit there and listen to them unload. But those kind of indicators that I just described are things that you might want to look for in somebody that might be interested in harming themselves, or taking that a step further, harming somebody else.
Right. And I'm in total agreement with the list that you've already provided. That is one of the main things, is some of the main patterns we may notice is maybe somebody's overwhelmingly depressed, and all of a sudden they're in such a high mood, right? Just like a drastic mood change. And in most cases, we're thinking, "Oh, they're doing better. Things are turning around for them," where we may overlook that as an indicator, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like you said, giving away things, starting to do things they would normally do, cleaning up, making things look perfect.
Right.
But you said something a minute ago where giving attention or making them feel noticed, that's important, because I hear a lot of people say, or some people say, "Oh, they're just doing that for attention," or "They're not serious doing about that." And so it's like we dismiss the potential of helping somebody save their life because we're thinking somebody's acting out for attention. But what is the harm in at least investigating or reaching out to see if that's so
Right.
instead of ignoring it?
Yeah, because the big part of it is people don't necessarily not want to live. They want whatever's happening to stop.
Correct.
And sometimes with not knowing an alternate route,
Mhm.
this is the only thing they can think of.
Right.
So when people step in and start asking questions, not what's wrong with you, but what's happening?
Right. Mhm.
What's going on in your life? You know, those type of questions will inspire them to kind of have the conversation with you,
Mhm.
or maybe even suggesting that they get, have a conversation with somebody else. But just being, like you said, being seen is very important.
Yes.
It solidifies to them that somebody is actually paying attention and somebody does care. So even that one little,
Mhm.
hey, how you doing?
Mhm.
That one little sentence might help them.
Yes. Sometimes even a smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say that we've missed the opportunity, we've overlooked someone's situation or the intent of the situation, and now they are at the point of ready to commit the act of suicide.
Mhm.
So that's where Terry would come in as a negotiator. So Terry, walk me through what that looks like now with this being active.
Yeah. So I guess let me back up and I remember when I started as a negotiator, they gave us a formula, and
Okay.
the formula had to do with how we communicate each other. And when I say we, I mean all of us, not just policemen or negotiators, but all of us, how we communicate a message with each other. And the formula was 738-55. So 7% of how we communicate a message with each other are the words that we use. And think about how many times you've said something like, "Oh, did I say the right thing? Or maybe I should have said this, or I shouldn't have said that."
Right.
That's only 7% of how we communicate a message. 38% is the tone of voice that we use with that message. And then 55% of how we communicate a message with each other is our body language and our facial expressions.
Yes.
So think about us as negotiators. So, a lot of times we had no idea why we were there. What started this? What precipitated this individual? Let's just, for example, say, got a gun and barricaded themselves in their house. Well, we don't know. And so, what's the first thing I want to do? I want to talk to you like a human being. So, I'm not going to start out by saying, "Hey, I'm Officer Tucker, or I'm Sergeant Tucker," or something like that. I'm going to say, "Hi, I'm Terry. What's your name?" And sometimes you get none of your business. I don't want to know. I don't want you to know anything. Okay. What do you want me to call you? And so, again, we're trying to connect on a human level, face to face, having no idea. Like, I don't know who you are. I don't even have a picture of you, but I'm trying to communicate over the phone. And so, first thing we would do is we would use what we used to call tactical empathy. I think you can get rid of the word tactical and just talk about empathy.
Okay.
Help you to understand where you're coming from. Not necessarily agree with you. I mean, if you just murdered 3 people, I'm not going to be like, "Oh yeah, I totally understand why you did." No, but
Right.
help you understand where you're coming from. And if you think about what we did, let me just make this will be a lot easier. Think about when we were, kids and we used to go to the park and we would play on a teeter-totter or a seesaw. When we started negotiating with somebody, usually their emotional brain was way up in the air and their rational brain was down on the ground.
Gotcha.
And over time, by using empathy, we would use how and what questions. We would stay away from why
Why?
questions.
Mhm.
because my questions sound accusatory. Well, Tiffany, why did you do that? Oh, wait a minute. Is he saying I shouldn't have done that? I can get to the same information by saying, well, Tiffany, what got us to this point? That's a much
Mm.
softer question that gets me that information. So over time, getting them to burn off a lot of this emotional energy, that teeter totter comes to equilibrium.
Wow.
And then through more questions, more talking, more trying to understand the emotion, we can get into emotions in a minute. The hopefully rational brain is up in the air and the emotional brain is down in the ground. And that's the time we would talk about solutions that put the gun down, come out, let the hostages go. When they're yelling and screaming and all that emotional energy is going, we would never talk about solutions to the problem. So we would get to the point where we're getting them to use their rational brain because we all make better decisions for ourselves
Mm.
with our rational brain as opposed to our emotional brain.
Mm.
That's so good.
Isn't it?
Because of course, most of us are not hostage negotiators.
No.
So we don't have that information to, like, if somebody's in our circle and they're actively about to do something to themselves, to harm themselves. So what I'm hearing, if you would give us like a trimmed down version of like something that an average person can do, because based off what you're saying, just asking questions and keeping them kind of talking and until somebody else may come along, or can you, like, I guess, wrap that up into a little box for the average person that's not a negotiator
Right.
to be helpful?
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about it a little before, and you both make great points. It just care, just see them, just understand that, and be there with them.
Mhm.
Also, if you don't have experience or background or training, dial 911.
Right.
Just get somebody there that does have experience and training and things like that. And a lot of it has to do, why do we talk about empathy? Because empathy leads to trust, and trust leads to the ability to change behavior. If you don't trust me, there's nothing I can do or say. One of the things we did, we never, ever lied to people. People would say to us, hey, I'll put the gun down and I'll come out, but you got to promise me I'm not going to go to jail. And we would have to say to them, I'm sorry, when you come out, you are going to go to jail. And then we would try to deflect the conversation to something that was more palatable, easier to deal with, something more positive. And the reason we did that, and this absolutely happened, is that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, we might be right back negotiating with this person again because the underlying problem is still there. It didn't go away.
Right.
And if they ever felt that we lied to them, we have no trust. They cannot trust. You're going to have to bring another negotiator. So we would never lie to people. And then the other thing is, we also weren't pushovers. We would never give somebody something without getting something. So sometimes people would be like, I want a cigarette. We'd be like, okay, we can get you a cigarette. What are you going to give me? Give me a bullet out of your gun. Give me a magazine out of your gun. Let one of the hostages go. I want a pizza. Okay, we can get you a pizza, but what are you going to give me? Because trust works both ways. It's not just a one-way street. So we needed to make sure that they understood they could trust us, but we also wanted to make sure that we could trust them as well. So I guess a long answer to your question is, if you can't deal with this situation, and most people can, call somebody that can. Whether you get them on a suicide hotline, whether you call law enforcement to get, a crisis person there with them, whether it's a negotiator or somebody else, it doesn't have to be a police officer. A lot of times we got involved because a gun was involved or the person was wanted, they were a homicide suspect, something like that. That's why we would get involved. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. As a matter of fact, many times not having law enforcement involved is much better because, let's face it, if you're talking to me and your house is surrounded by the police, you're probably having the worst day of your life.
Right.
Wow. Pretty interesting,
Mhm.
right? But pretty serious at the same time,
Yes.
right? But even before we get to the point of suicide, what I would suggest is becoming better at problem solving, right? Because I think a lot of times it becomes compounded issues that now pushes us to a point where we're so overwhelmed where it's like you feel like you're in a black hole and you can't dig your way out, right? So it's being able to create situations or opportunities where when we're faced with something that we feel like we cannot navigate on our own, to seek help, whether it's a dependable family member, whether it's a trained mental health professional, being able to have the courage to actually seek help to see if we can get the help we need to solve the problem
Mhm.
so that we don't get to the point of wanting to commit suicide.
Absolutely. And I think and this is a something good that you as parents you can use with your kids. You know, a lot of times as parents, you know, you hear about helicopter parenting where parents want to swoop in and, you know, take care of everything.
Rescue.
Well,
Mhm.
a better solution and a better solution in this situation as well is to ask questions
Mhm.
that will lead the individual to come up with the
Yes.
answer
That's right.
as opposed to you giving them the answer.
That's
Here, you
good.
need to do this.
That's
No,
good.
ask a question, and I can't think of a scenario off the top of my head. Ask a question that will get them thinking how they can, and that's one of the reasons we used how and what questions. Because if you said, you know, give me a car out front, and I said, well, how am I supposed to do that? What did I really do? I lobbed the ball back into their court because I said to them, how am I supposed to do that? Now I've got them engaged. I've got them thinking how they can help me to get them out safely. And they don't even realize that that's what I just did to them.
Good. That's good.
That's good.
And so then now that leads me to another note in parenting is how important is it to check in with your children so that we can discern when something's changing, when something's different, and that we can have the conversation, even if we feel like they can't come forward, that we can possibly encourage them to extract it with us.
Yeah, it's incredibly important. And I love the parents that just don't say, you know, at the dinner table, hey,
Yeah,
how
you
was
have a
your
good
day?
day. Right.
Mhm.
You know, I love the parents that are like, tell me an incident today where you went out of your way to be kind to somebody, or tell me an
Yes.
incident today where you overcame a challenge that you didn't think you could do today.
Yes.
Again, you're getting the kids then to start thinking of, oh, kindness. I should be kind to people. Or
Yes.
challenges. How do I overcome challenges? You're not telling them how to do it. You're getting them to figure out how to do it. And that makes for incredibly resilient adults if you can make resilient kids.
That's good.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And that also helps with problem solving.
Mhm.
So if you learn how to problem solve with the little things,
Yes.
with the day-to-day things, when these huge things begin to happen, you're better at, you have more tools
That's it.
to take in and more evidence of what you've done before
Right.
to kind of inform your decision making in the future or the
That's it.
present.
That's good. All right. Well, I'm following. I understand the process of what that looks like as far as negotiating. We've touched on ways that we can help in the community, help in our families, help in our networks. So, in closing, Aaliyah, what would you say to someone who is maybe listening to this podcast and thinking about the possibility of committing suicide? What would you say to encourage them?
What would I say? Mm, there's so much I would say. The one thing is that I see you, that I hear you, that out of curiosity, I would like to know what's happening in your life. That I can't solve your problems, but I'm here to walk alongside you. I'm willing to journey with you in this process. That I know you may feel alone, but you're not alone. I don't know exactly how you feel. I don't. But I'm here to listen. I think I would want to acknowledge how sucky this is right now for you. To acknowledge that everything is not looking well right now. To acknowledge that, how you might be feeling and say that's okay. You can feel like that. That's okay for you to feel however you feel, kind of validating their feelings and then moving on from there saying, yeah, I can see how that can make you feel. I can see how, this is that. But at the end of the day, there is a tomorrow if you allow it to be. And you may feel like that right now, but if you can just wait until tomorrow, let's see how you feel. And then I would say that every day. Let's see how you feel tomorrow until something happens.
Okay. Terry, what would you say to them?
I would say you made a great point about being curious, because that's one thing we were always taught. Use your curious voice. If you don't know what to say, use another tactic that we used, was called parroting or mirroring, where you just repeat back to them the last 2 or 3 words or the most important word, and you do it in a curious voice. Oh, you don't think you could make that work? And then shut up. And that's the hardest thing to do, using silence to your benefit. I don't know what to say to this person, but let them talk, and whatever they end with, just shoot it back at them with, oh, really? So you said you didn't think you can make that work, really? And then be quiet, because we don't like silence, and silence will get them to talk. And the more they talk, the more they burn off that energy. So the last thing I'll say about this is you've got to understand the emotions that they are putting forward. So if somebody's ranting and raving and yelling and screaming about their mother, and you say something stupid, and I have done this before, like, oh, you seem like you're a little upset with your mother. No, I'm pissed as hell at my mother. You've got to go where they are. And that's why being a negotiator was so exhausting. You had to get down in the weeds with these people. You had to mirror what they were saying. You had to say, your mom has really pissed you off tonight, didn't she? Because what that does is it develops trust. It's like, yeah, Terry gets me. He knows I'm pissed at my mom tonight. Bingo. That's starting that trust. And when you get to that trust, now you can start talking about solutions and things like that. I don't know if that's for the general public, so to speak, but from our perspective, those were things we used. Be curious. Use what they say, not against them, but if you don't, I don't know what to say to this guy, just parrot back to them what they said, and let them keep talking, because it burns off that energy. And then when they stop talking, parrot back to them again. It'll burn off more energy. It's a science. It's a nuance. It's a way to understand people, but just be there for them. Understand that I'm not going away. I care about you. I love you. I see you. I will not let you falter. I'm here for you. And I think for so many of us, that's really what life is about. Does somebody see me?
Yeah.
And if they see you, if you see each other, if we have that connection, there's a good chance that person won't pull the trigger, so to speak.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. So according to the World Health Organization, which we know is WHO, 700,000 people die a year by suicide, which is one person every 40 seconds. So if we are encountering the situation, I want to leave 2 numbers with you. Someone can dial 988, or you can dial the 1-800 number, which is 1-800-273-TALK as the acronym, which is 1-800-273-8255. If you're in a crisis, you're contemplating suicide, and you need some immediate help, those are 2 numbers available 24/7. Right?
That's
Okay.
it.
Well, in closing, thank you once again, Terry, for coming on to share with us some valuable information that we can take, learn from, and encourage others. And if there's nothing else, any
Mhm.
last words from you that you would like to leave with the audience?
I mean, what we did as hostage negotiators was it was scary. It was difficult. We're trying to develop a relationship with a human being that we've never met before and that we can't see face to face. And so we got really good about figuring things out, certainly based on what people were saying. But if you think about that formula I gave you, that 55%, I didn't have that 55%. I couldn't see the person. They couldn't see my body language. So we got good at figuring things out based on what they were saying, what they weren't saying, and how they were saying it. There's a reason God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. I know you find that hard to believe, listen to me talk all the time, but it really is important to listen to what people are saying and also listen for what they aren't saying to you.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. All right. With that being said, you have any parting words, Aaliyah?
Just thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here again. We really, really appreciate you.
Yes.
And I hope to talk to you again.
Right.
I really do. Because it's so, I mean, there's so much more
Yeah.
that only this amount of time cannot,
Yeah.
because there's so many angles we can ask you, so many different questions.
Yeah.
Um,
And he has a wealth of knowledge.
yes. Yes.
And
So
experience.
yes. So thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for sharing with us not only your life story, but your life as a negotiator it's really cool.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I enjoyed talking with both of you.
Yes. All right. Well, much success, continued success with you. And we'll be certainly praying for you. You continue to be inspirational, positive, instrumental, and all those good things as you continue to walk out your life's purpose and message.
Thank you very much.
All right. You have a great evening.
You too.
All right. And to our audience, as always, thank you for tuning into the Trauma Overhaul podcast. We hope that you found this information very helpful tonight. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to sharing with you on the next episode.